Hey everybody, it's Root Beer. Outer Orange just revealed the new OTT Stride from the Premium Collection on her channel, so I'm going to talk about it because it's one of the only two clans I care about, and hey, maybe if I do this enough, we will matter enough for Bushiroad to let me reveal the next mediocre OTT card. So we have Radiant Ocean Heltrauda. So her skill is auto on Vanguard Circle. When this unit attacks, discard 3 cards from your hand, return all of the cards on your circles other than V to your hand. Choose up to 2 rear guards from your hand, call them to rear at the end of the battle, counterblast 1, soul blast 1. Put this unit into your G zone, choose one of your Vanguards and stand it. This card fulfills a very valuable niche of being a stride Bermuda actually wants to go into. A lot of old Bermuda Strides are unfortunately either GB locked or have archetype restrictions, like a lot of the early game Bermuda Strides just say Harmony on them for no reason. And Bermuda took a huge L in the last Premium Collection because that Stride was a Highlander card, and unlike all of the other Highlander cards that were printed in V, this one counts trigger units when looking for different card names, so it's bad even by that standard. So yeah, this new Stride already gets major points for just being playable. As for the card itself, it is obviously very strong. It is a better version of Sunshine Vert. Not only do you get to restand your Vanguard, you also get to call 2 additional units on top of that. And it also kind of plays around Order Colony, which is the deck that lots of people are kind of talking about right now. Obviously, returning units to hand gets around V Brilliant Blister's stun ability, but also the original one can stun restanding Vanguards, which this gets around by just going back to the G zone and then restanding your Heart card. And then, of course, a lot of the modern grade 3s do things on their own when they are on the Vanguard circle, so you can get additional Vanguard skills on top of just getting the restand and 2 extra attacks. Really, the biggest downside that I see to this card is having to pay the discard 3 up front. I will admit, it's been a while since I've thought about like V and Premium, although my experience with a lot of previous V bosses was that they didn't really gain a lot of advantage outside of Prism. My biggest concern with this card is that most decks can't sustain the discard 3 cost due to the increased power level that Premium offers. That being said, it does work very well in Prisms. I think that's the most obvious no-brainer deck because it doesn't have the new restrictions that we got in V, so you can just play full power V Prism with its crazy advantage engine, and then have this on top of it just to increase your offensive power. Of course, you can also just put this into a Highlander deck. That deck has always just kind of worked. You just play a pile of 50 good cards, and then Heltrauda just goes into Reindeer, who then goes into any other boss unit, and that deck just kind of does things, so I think the ceiling on there is pretty high with 3 Vanguard attacks plus whatever your end card does. I think this card can also work with things like Lupina and Melody, although those bosses kind of need their act abilities for a bit of setup. Like, Lupina uses her act skill to kind of call a rear guard and maintain your advantage, and then Plon, you just straight up need your main phase act abilities to like get the extra circles, and even if you copy something like Sonata, that's also an act, so in order to get advantage, you really need your main phase, so you're not necessarily striding when you want to because you still need to set up for it. And of course, this card just doesn't work with any like act-based Vanguard, right? So yeah, I think this card is obviously really strong, like getting extra attacks plus your Vanguard restand, plus whatever your original Vanguard does is obviously very good, though I think having to discard 3 up front limits it in some ways if you couldn't recover from a really big turn by your opponent. I think if the costs were reversed, where you can counterblast 1, soul blast 1 first, and then discard after your drive checks, this card would be god tier. Though I suppose that's why this card is formatted this way instead. Overall, this is a super strong Stride. I think it's a very powerful option for Prism and Highlander, although I think the other V bosses and a lot of the D bosses as well are kind of let down by just no advantage. And then there was also a G guard, Diva of Salvation, Lucrece. So when it's placed on guard circle, counterblast 1, return a normal unit from rear to hand, and perform the following according to the grade of the unit returned for the cost. 2 or less, it gets plus 15k shield. 3 or more, choose one of your Vanguards, gets plus 5k until end of turn. Free Ellie. I think this G-Guard is really mediocre. It cannot return any stuck triggers that end up on your field. It says Counterblast 1 for no reason. I think the plus 15k is not worth it most of the time, although you do get to bounce something back to your hand if your opponent tries to mess with one of your rear guards, but it doesn't help any, main phase control options either. I feel like Bushiroad is just printing Counterblast 1 on a lot of these G-Guards, just to have a cost, even though a lot of them don't necessarily warrant it. The 3+ effect of getting plus 5k is probably going to be more relevant depending on what you're playing against. This card is whatever. I think if it was just return something to hand, get 15k for free, it would probably be way better, but it's not, so it is what it is. Once again, free Ellie. So yeah, overall I think Prism is looking very good in Premium with Heltrauda. I don't know as much about Highlander, although I've heard other people saying that the ceiling is pretty high on that. I would like to see more advantage cards in future V support so that things like Anje can do better. But I think that's a V problem. I think Heltrauda herself is just a super strong stride. That is going to be it for this video. Thank you for watching. Thank you to our $10 patrons, Darren, Cole, Josh, Jeremy, and Mewwill. If you want to support us on Patreon, $5 gets you a whole ass bonus show, $10 gets you early access to videos that aren't like the podcast and reaction videos like this. We also have merch, link in the description. You can follow us on Twitter or Instagram at Nexus at Night. You can follow me at Plasma Eclipse, Atlas at Atlas Novak, and Matt at Wiggums, 2 Gs, 2 Zs. Remember to do all of the things that make algorithms happy. Thanks everyone again for watching. Bye-bye.